So we'll see if this is going to be a good idea. I'm doing this after training. I don't know about you, but I'm knackered.
I just had a bottle of Lucozade. That should keep my brain ticking over. And a vegan sausage roll. I know that's frowned upon in jiu-jitsu circles, but I am a vegetarian. But I don't care. I'm going to own that.
That's all good, man. As long as you can get through the podcast. Right, introduce yourself, Sanjay.
So,
who the devil are you?
Some days I wonder about that myself.
We're all searching for that answer.
That's a very philosophical start to this podcast. Sanjay Jalporte, I train here at Bermuda, and I'm going to suggest that I know for certain that I am the lowest ranked person you've ever had on this podcast, because I'm a white belt.
Emerson's a white belt.
Is he really?
Although he's not really BJJ graded in any way.
Okay.
But he has grappled a while. Aaron Kirk, can you include him as a high level grappler?
I mean, he's battered me senseless, so therefore I can't call it.
Probably a fluke.
10 times? That's a lot. He's on a lucky streak.
He's a lucky guy, man.
I can't possibly comment on anybody that takes me apart on a regular basis. But I'm here, so I train here with you, and thank you for that, and all the people as well, because it's brilliant. But before that, I was at Shoot Fighters for a little bit as well, very spontaneously. So shout out to Shoot Fighters, is a long part of our Leicester history, as we know as well. So that's me, man. And then my daughter trains here as well.
She does, mate. I want to talk about that as well. But
yes,
tell me what you do full time, mate. Again, your mentoring.
So I have a project called Notepad Wisdom. So it has two roles effectively. So the first role is we are struggling massively in this country to get young people acclimatized to the world of work. Now, that is for a number of factors, a number of reasons. I would strongly suggest, as controversial as it is, common sense might be the biggest issue that a lot of these young people face. So one side of it is mentoring young people to get acclimatized to the way of work. Because you, as we talked about in my podcast, you was a warehouse job, forklifting and all that kind of stuff. Now, there are certain environments that if your skin isn't so thick, you might struggle with some of the banter that goes on there. And I tend to find that young people sometimes are lacking the soft skills, not just in those industries, but I know, for example, I've mentored med students who've gone into the world of medicine and they really struggle. Or I've had to look after some people who go into a law firm and they kind of go, I wasn't ready for this kind of pressure. Okay, so it's all that. But then the other side of it is due to the background and the upbringing I had, because Moss Side in Manchester in the 80s, which was chaos. So I also work with young people who have criminal records, violent offenders, young people that have been kicked out of school and not in mainstream education, kids that are at risk of abuse, at risk from you fall into that lifestyle as well, and just trying to help them get back to where they need to be if it's possible. It's a cold world, man, out there, and I think sometimes, I mean, you remember what it's like. You get the advice from a teacher who hasn't lived your experience. How valid is that advice? But you get it from someone who's potentially lived that life and has seen things that you've seen as well. Yeah. I think the advice is a lot more palatable. It's a lot more stronger,
What age group is this?
There can be any age group. So I have dealt with kids who are as young as 10, who are abuse survivors and are really struggling. And they potentially might end up being the pipeline for kids that commit serious offences, serious crimes further down the road as well. If it's possible, I like to try and work with secondary school kids, because I feel like if you can engage them at that age, there's hope. There's a little bit of hope. Not in all cases, but sometimes there is a bit of hope. So that's kind of where we're at with it as well.
So do you get into the schools then? Is that where you do most of your work, in the schools?
Yeah.
So how does that work then? Do the schools look for you to come in?
So the way it started was, I think, so I did a lot of time in the music industry as well. That's a different podcast altogether. But one of the things I realised was in the music industry is you have to do it. In fact, it's no different to when you do trial classes. You might say, come to the first trial class, it's free. Now the student's either going to say, I had the best time ever. I got battered, but it was so much fun. And then they subscribe to your membership, right? And that's what I do with schools. So I kind of go to schools and say, this is my project. I will give you X amount of mentoring sessions for free. And if we see a positive outcome from this young person or this group of young people, or you feel like there's an outcome, then have me back. And at that point, we go to a contract. And to this day, I've been to a lot of schools, and I'm contracted with them all. And I don't think that's anything. It's not. I genuinely think that's because I'm great at my job, or I'm brilliant at what I do, or I'm some sort of genius. I've always thought it's because of the way that I can listen to young people, which is a very, very different skill to educating young people. Because some of these kids just want to be heard. They just want to vent. They just want to tell you what's wrong. And once they've done that, then you have access to them. Then you have access to the mind, and then you can start inserting things and saying, right, okay, these are the choices that are going to help you in your life now, and so on and so on.
What jobs did you work before you took this on?
Man, I did everything. So I've also work I've got a desk job right now as well, which I think is why I like coming down here and stuff, because sitting in the office all day hunched up, it ain't good for your health, man, at all. So I do that. So I'm a marketing analyst, whatever that happens to be. Very, very good company. Very, very privileged to be there. Absolutely love them. Before that, worked at DHL up at East Midlands Airport. And then before that, loads of other jobs. Car mechanic for a while. Wow. I did the tills at Sainsbury's. Loads of little jobs. I worked in a nursing home for 6 months as well when I was younger, night shifts. Check this, for £2.75 an hour.
What year was this? This is the 60s or something. How old are you?
I'm 44 this year. £2.75, and I was buzzing.
Yeah,
I was revving.
I thought you were going to say that as well.
I was like, oh my god. So, what year was that? That would have been £2.75. That would have been 98. I think 98. Somewhere around that time, end of the 90s. So I did that, worked the doors for years as well. I did the doors for 8 years and did a lot of bodyguarding work and things like that. So so that was a lot of fun. And I'm convinced to this day, working the doors is one of the reasons why I think I can relate to people. Because I'm not a big guy. So when you've got some 7-foot monster who's high, who's on drugs, wasted, and they're about to go through you, and you can't beat them up, what else have you got left? You just got your wit and your tact to try and settle the situation now. So you better be sharp, because if you ain't, that guy's gonna kill
I'll
you.
be screwed, man.
Yeah. Well, you'd be all right.
No, I got wit or tact. No.
You're good.
I told you on the class today, my brain's melting away.
From your children.
I've got grappling, man. I've got jiu-jitsu, that's it.
Yeah, that's all you need.
That is literally it.
But I didn't even have that back then, so it was like, okay, all I had was a bit of wit and a bit of willpower.
Okay, going back to the mentoring then. What do you think makes a good mentor?
I alluded to this a minute ago, and I think it is listening. So we live in a world now where people just want to talk and talk and talk and talk, and then they want to talk and talk and talk some more, and everybody wants to get their point across, but we don't listen to the answers. And the meaning, when somebody's talking, sometimes it's not what they're saying, it's what they're not saying. And that's a huge thing in mentoring. So, for example, if I meet a young person, so one of the questions I like to ask young people all the time is like, oh, you come up and you got to give it the top boy speak. Yo, what's happening, bro? And they're like, yeah, I'm good, bro. And you go, okay, fine. How's your crew? And they go, yeah, they're all right. You go, what's happening with your crew then? I don't know. And you go, okay, so you don't know what's happening with your crew? And they go, just chilling, innit? I'm going, okay, so basically what that looks like in my mind is you're sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya to each other, knitting. And they're like, nah, bro, that's not what we do. So what I've done there is I'm listening to the answers he's not giving me and questioning what he is doing. And then they go, no, we're chilling, we're doing this. And yesterday we went to the corner, and yesterday we didn't do this. Yesterday we robbed the post office, we did whatever. Yesterday we hung out. And then they start giving you everything. So it's it's also the ability to listen to what they're not telling you, and the ability to question in a really, really clever way, so they give you absolutely everything. Yeah. And that's what it is. And the other biggest thing I tend to find, and I've watched a lot of your podcasts, you don't do it, is you don't do it. You don't do it. You're actually very good. Is when someone's talking, you will have that urge to respond. Like, oh, that's a really good point. I wanted to hold it back. Let them finish and then go in as well. So it's the ability to not just randomly interrupt someone when they're in their flow. When they're in their flow, they'll give you everything. Yeah. That's one of the things I think is the ability to be an average mentor at the very, very least.
Yeah. weirdly enough, that is something that I picked up just from reading comments about like Joe Rogan podcasts and that. The amount of people, the first thing they put in the comments about a podcast is, don't this guy ever shut up and let the other person actually talk?
Yeah.
So that was actually deliberately one of the first things I always wanted to do when I started a podcast, was try my hardest to not just treat it fully as a conversation. Because when we have a conversation, obviously both people are trying to get their bit in, but it's not really about that. Obviously the reason to have guests on your podcast is that you want to hear what they've got to say.
Yes.
So if you're just talking about your own experiences all the time, then there is some podcasts where I do feel like I've repeated myself a lot.
Really?
And I actually said to Zoe, like, do you think I talk about myself too much?
No,
because
I don't think you do.
Sometimes I feel like, shit, I said this on another podcast already.
You talk about Aaron Kirk a lot. And shout out to Zoe as well, man.
Yeah, man. Do you know what? Shout out to Zoe, truly, because he sorted my tooth out last week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's such bad wisdom tooth pain. And yeah, he sorted me out. So
how you feeling?
I'm back, mate.
You back?
I'm
back. Back today.
I'm back. Well, not so much on the fitness thing, but I'm back eating.
Oh, I did think
that's been important because I've had blended food for a long time.
On that note, circling back about the Joe Rogan thing where you're talking, I've heard a lot of podcasts where people ask a question like this, and it winds me up rotten. So if I'm interviewing you, we flip it. I might say, "Oh, so Liam, tell me about how you do the setup that you use for a Kimura, for example, when you're in mount position. Because when I'm in mount position, I like to go like this and like this. But then when I'm not in mount position, I do like this. So how do you set it up? Because when you set it up, you do it like this, but I do it the other way. So I've answered your question for you, and you're just sitting there going,
mate,
when can I answer?
This is a lot of jiu-jitsu questions. And sometimes I sit there and I look at the person talking. And I think, do you even realise what you're doing right now? Like a lot of people, they ask questions in jiu-jitsu to me to validate their own answer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or to prove that they know something.
Yeah.
Which is a strange thing, because you might as well just not bother asking me the question.
But you're a black belt, they want your attention.
Yeah, it might just be that, I suppose.
They want your validation without the belt.
I don't give it for free, though, as you know. So.
Yes. Yeah, and now on that as well, we recently had to run a whole political campaign for Joe to get his purple belt. I'm glad that worked. We had to get a marketing team. we had to get a campaign manager, and then
and you had to catch him on a good day as well.
On a good day,
a very good day.
Yeah, that was a hard part, but eventually we did the job. I'm proud of the team.
To be fair, I forgot though as well. Like for 2 weeks, I kept forgetting. I got home and I was like, shit, I was supposed to give Joe his purple belt. I forgot. The point where I messaged him, I said, look, mate, I keep forgetting to do it.
You ain't losing a sleep over it though.
Hey, look, it just makes people stronger, in my opinion. The way I look at it is, if you've not been given your belt yet, you've got to keep working hard for it. It should make you just keep working for it. And if you walk away from it, then that's on you. It's not on me. Do you know what I mean? For not, whether you deserve it or not, if I've not folded and gave it to you, then it's on you. Do you know what I mean? Do something to make me give it you.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it for the most part.
Like a go for
anyway, less about me, more about you, Sanjay.
You talk about yourself way too much on this podcast, bro.
Here I go again. Going back to the mentoring again.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about a success story then. What does even a success story look like for you? Like, where are you taking a kid from and where are you getting them to for you to give yourself a big pat on the back and say, I've done a good job there?
I don't think that's ever possible. And one of the biggest issues we face in any line of work, in any type of business, whatever you're in, it's not, and you know this as well, it's not what you do on the mats, it's what you do off the mats. Right? Because you could come here, you do your class 1 hour a week, but then if you go home and you're just eating junk, load of rubbish, maybe you're not drilling at home perhaps, you know, you're not doing your press ups, you're not doing shadow boxing. When you come here again, how much really have you improved? The difficulty we have or we face with young people is I can work with that person for an hour and I can get them to a position where they feel like they've made progress. And then they leave school or they leave where they're at or wherever we're talking and they go back home to find dad's coming through the door drunk and smacked his mum up. The same mum that happens to have come back having sold, you know, X amount of heroin, who's still currently high. So he or she has still got to go back to their environment. Or they've still got to go back to an environment where the stepfather's abusing them, stepmother's abusing them. So the success stories, sadly, are very, very few and far between. And as you know, and relating it to jiu-jitsu as well, you have to measure things with a reasonable goal. So like, for example, when I rolled earlier today, you know, I know for certain I was the lightest person in the room. We had a couple of 100 kilo guys. So there's no point me looking at some of the guys who are blue belt 100 kilo going, right, my aim today is to tap you twice. Not going to happen. The measurable goal in that instance becomes, don't get tapped for the first, a 5-minute roll, don't get tapped for 3 minutes. Don't let him take you back once. Okay, or get out of that roll having only been tapped 5 times. Okay, your measurable goal. So with young people, it's the very same thing. My goal with young people is to put them in a position where, at the very least, before they make a decision, they're going to think about it. So if they're about to do something stupid, I want them to just take that half a second where they just go, right, no, I don't need to do this because this is going to escalate. Or they think about it and they might still do it anyway because of habitual behaviours that they've had ever since on the lifestyle they're in. So that's the best I can do with some of these young people, because unless I'm in the home with them, unless I'm able to physically remove them from that environment, that's as much as I can possibly do. So that's the measurable goal. I did have one kid who we worked, that process worked. Him and his mates were out. They all got lifted, having done something. I'm not going to say what it is because, you know, it became a legal court case. And he was the only one that when the feds picked him up, he went, fine, I'll tell you what happened. And he fessed up to it. And his parents told the school, and the school were like, 6 months ago, he'd have never done that. He'd have been the first in that situation. And I consider a win, because at the very least, he thought about the consequences of that action. That's the best you can do. It's literally the best you can do.
I'm just thinking about an experience I have within our family at home. So I'm going to ask you a question based around that, where there's a kid who is not necessarily a bad kid, and this is probably nothing like what you're seeing, you know, what you're talking about, but this is a kid who at the minute, say, doesn't have a lot of hope of where he's going in terms of the direction of his life, and has got into that teenage now where there's decisions to be made that aren't being made, and everyone can see that they're not being made, and he's on that path to just nothingness, basically. Doesn't really have great role models. What's your advice there? Like, if you, and again, it's going back to an environment where, you know, it's always going to kind of be that way. So what type of things are you trying to do? Because, so the question I'm trying to get to is that I can see what's good for this kid. I could definitely see some pathways that he can go, but he might take on what I'm saying and go, sounds like a good idea, but then he goes back to his normal environment where it's kind of squashed and forgotten about. So what do you do there? How do you kind of enforce that it needs to be done, but I can't physically make you do it?
I mean, you probably see that on the mats all the time as well. Like, you do that move. Why don't you do that move? And that's hugely frustrating as someone who's watching it from above. I like to try and get young people, if it's possible, to look at the controllables and uncontrollables of the situation or the circumstance they're in. In that instance, it might not be a case of immediate action. It might be a case of, we put the seed in your head because later to be manifested. Because that young person might leave home at the age of 20. Now, at that point, they have more ability to move freely. And that's when the decision-making capability comes in. Because they will either move with the framework that they have, which is, I'm coasting, or they would have had some seed sown on them that says, I'm free now, I actually can do what I want. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to kick on with this. Controllables and uncontrollables are exactly as they sound. Like, what legitimately are you in control of in your life? Like, for a start, you're not in control of other people. You're not in control of what they say, what they do. You're in control of your actions and what it is that you do. In the instance of that, what I like to do with someone, and I've had a few people come with that kind of thing who struggle to get their own motivation, is you have to find out what's important to them, what their value system is, and everything has to channel into that. So I guess an example would be, if you have a young person that, you know, is interested in jiu-jitsu, for example, who everything else just coasts, when you speak to them, you have to then say, well, okay, what is the effect on the thing that you love? So if you do this, does that mean you're going to get to jiu-jitsu at the weekend? No, it doesn't. So what's the benefit to you? Well, there isn't, because don't get to do the thing I love. Now, everybody will have something they love, or somebody they love. And this is a technique I use with kids who are really, really struggling. So as a template answer, I might have a young person who's giving it all, yeah, gangster boy, and all of that. And then you kind of go, okay, so if you go and rob that store, or you go and rob that corner shop, what's the effect on the people around you? I don't care. So then you go, right, okay, tell me about the people in your life. Oh, I don't know my dad. My dad left years and years ago, but I love my mum. She's great. She's looked after me. She's looked after my brother. Okay, so when's the last time you saw your mum upset? Oh, she was really upset when so-and-so passed away. What did it look like? Oh, she was screaming and she was crying, and she went, how'd that make you feel? Man, I went upstairs and locked myself in my room. I was crying as well. Okay, now if you rob that store and the police come to your house, imagine your mum doing that, and you suddenly see him just go, damn it, I didn't think about that. Because now you've connected it with the most valuable thing in their life, and the fear of loss, of losing that thing is embedded. That's what drives motivation. You can't tell me to work harder. I can't tell you, Liam, you got to do more with your business. You got to put more classes on. You'd be like, who are you talking to, bro? You didn't tell me what to do. I can't motivate you. But if you have a fear of loss of the most important thing in your life, you'll motivate yourself, because you'll want to keep that. So that's also a good way to take a young person who's coasting, find out what is deeply embedded, and link everything back to that.
Yeah,
so it has an effect on that thing.
That's brilliant, mate. That's a very, very good answer. Thank you for answering my question.
That's right.
No, that's wicked.
But if you need any help, by all means, let us know.
Yeah. The next thing I was going to ask you was, well, in fact, let's go to your martial arts background.
Good Lord.
What have you done martial arts wise to get you to here, to get to this dance, the jiu-jitsu dance?
Oh, Jesus. That is, that's a really awkward story, but and I'll try and shorten it. But so I boxed for a lot of years, having gone to a school where I was just getting my head kicked in. It was a simple circumstance of like, I've always been up for a tear up ever since I was a kid. I've never been scared to get in a fight. I enjoy it. It's a good, fun thing to do in legal environments, right? Now you can start to see now why I kind of walk the path in a different direction. But then I remember you'd kind of, you're getting beat up by like 10, 15 guys, and those odds are insurmountable. So I remember somebody saying to me, go and learn to box, or go and learn to do karate, do something. So I went to a boxing gym, and he thought, you're going to smack somebody up, go and do it properly. And that was brilliant. So I did a lot of boxing, amateur boxing for a lot of years. Then went back home to Manchester, and then got involved in some things that didn't help my training, shall we say. And then you kind of get through that phase where you just get involved in lots of alcohol, lots of other things, and lots of people, and it goes off. And then once I started to look at my life and go, actually, you need to sort yourself out. I remember going to this Wing Chun class in Derby where my parents were living at the time. I don't know why my parents won't live in Derby. It's just not nice. It's a hole. I'll leave it at that. Is there anybody from Derby listening here?
Yeah, sorry, people from Derby.
Yeah, but come here because it's a really good place to train. So I joined a Wing Chun class, but it was one of those classes where nothing was live. So it was very much like Mac Dojo, if you know what I mean. And I realised that quite quickly because I was working at the doors at the time. So, you'd get into a fight and then you do a move and you'd go, I got my teeth taken out. That shouldn't have happened because I'm ex-belt. But then the real changeover came when I met Alan Orr and all his guys. So Alan Orr is a Wing Chun guy, lives in New Zealand from the UK, but he's also a black belt in Jits as well. Very, very, very skilled. But his overall philosophy is this whole thing about it's just fighting, right? It's just fighting. So you have to have an overall game. So you can't pole upon a boxer can't say, well, I'll just smack you up every time. It's not going to work. And a grappler can't say, well, I'll just take you to the floor every time. So he has this overall approach. So when I started working with his guys, so Aaron Baum down in Brighton, Dwayne Harper, who's was up in Keighley, and then Mick Yates, who's my instructor in Nottingham, they're all versed in everything. Very, very good grapplers, high-level grapplers, brown and black belts, but then they're also very good with the hands as well. And that was the first point I started to realise. I thought, yeah, I need to start grappling. But at the time, the only place I could get to was shoot fighters, but I could only do man, probably about one class a month because I had young family, which was nothing. So you kind of go to a class and then the next month you're just doing the stuff that you did the month before. So I was never progressing. I think I did that for about 4 years just to stay on the mat somehow. And then it became a case of, I remember talking to Dan Strauss actually on my podcast. He said, your jiu-jitsu journey, you should really only measure it by how many times you've done sort of 2 classes or more a week consistently. So if we're going by that measure, then I think jiu-jitsu has probably been about 4 years in. The first 4 years was just turning up and doing the best you can. But yeah, so that was the journey. And then I think certainly coming here and being consistent here has massively helped in the last couple of years and working with you guys, because it's just so much fun. And I'm able to learn so much from a lot of the people around me as well, including Aaron.
Poor old Aaron.
Take that as you will. And my daughter as well, that's the other factor. Alicia, my daughter, who competes here and trains here, and she, you know, with her coming here as well, there's that fatherly thing, because, you know, she'll train and then she'll sit in the corner with her headphones and her homework watching me train. So there is almost like a pressure on me of like, you better pay attention here because your kid's watching as well. And she does watch. Like she will sit in the car and go, why did that guy get mount on you, Dad? Why did you? She's even pulled me up. She's gone, how did you let him get mount on you from that position? And you go, you're 10, leave me alone.
So who knows the most out of the two of you?
You know, I think, you answer that question. If we were the same size or same age, who would win? Because you know what she's like. She's a savage.
Yeah, I think you'd have your hands full, mate.
I know, man. Yeah.
If you were back to being 10 years old again.
Or if she was 44.
Yeah, man, she's doing really well. How do you find your mentoring helps with, I guess, raising your own child and getting into jiu-jitsu as well? You can treat that as 2 different questions if you want to, or you can answer it as for both.
For her, getting into jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so how does get my words out. How does the mentoring help you in that sense? Because it's hard to switch off from your role, right? To treat your own kids differently. So how does that work with the mentoring and then with raising Alicia?
I think raising kids, so both of them as well, so my son Brody also, I think the first thing is I've got help because my wife's unreal. You know, I have to work really hard at mentoring. Like I have to study it, I have to read about it, I have to do it, and then I have to work really hard to implement it. The wife comes along, just does it on autopilot, and you go, I've been working 6 months on this new vocabulary linguistic technique, and you just flipping do it, you know. And I'm going, but she's brilliant, she's unbelievable. So that helps.
That's within their nature, though, mate. They're just born with this. As soon as they have kids, all of a sudden they have these mother powers that just come from nowhere. Yeah, for real. Yeah, and she's definitely got them. So that's a huge help. She's probably 90% of everything that goes on in our house, which is amazing. So shout out to all the other mothers as well. That, you know what I mean. We give them mad respect. I think at the time of this podcast, Mother's Day is coming up. I think. Is it? When's Mother's Day?
March.
Let's get past Valentine's Day first, mate.
Okay, one step at a time.
One at a time.
One progress.
All right, moving on to the jiu-jitsu side of things then.
Yes.
How does your mentoring help with jiu-jitsu? Because you know, no one from BMA can kind of take any credit for what you've done with Alicia. Like you push.
You can.
Well, I mean, I teach on the classes, of course.
And Zoeb, certainly.
And Zoeb. But, you know, you drive that whole thing with her competing. Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of what me and Zoeb have kind of sat back to let happen. We want the parents to kind of get involved more, which is why we let the parents come in and watch on the competition classes so that they can see what's going on and become more involved with it. And we want that for the parents to kind of push that forwards.
Yeah.
But without even asking you to do that, you've just took on that role. You take Alicia competing all the time. Like she does so many competitions. So how do you find the mentoring helps from a cornerman point of view and as a coach?
So I've got very definable rules when I'm with Alicia. And the first thing as well, you know, mad respect to all the parents that bring their kids here as well. Do you know what I mean? Because they pay the memberships and the kids come and the kids work really hard. So shout out to them and all of your coaches as well. Yourself, Brad is here as well, helps out, and Zoeb and his children as well also help out. They're amazing. So I have very very strict rules when I'm with Alicia. The first is I never ask twice. So if I have a list of tournaments and I say, these are the tournaments, we've got weekends free, we're not doing anything, we've not got family events or whatever, do you want to go? If she says yes, then we'll go. If she says no, then I'll be like, okay, that's cool, I don't ask again. So that's the first thing, which means there's no pressure. The second rule that I have is when I take her to a tournament, I am not coach, I'm dad. They are two very, very different rules. Under no circumstances, unless it's something that I know very, very well as a, white belt, so you mount escape into dogfight, for example, something very simple that you've learned and I'll coach that. But I am not going to tell her what to do because you're the black belt. Zoeb's a high grade, right? You two and Brad, you three as a coaching team have forgotten more jiu-jitsu than I will ever know. So what right do I have to tell her, do this move, do that move, do this move? And linking it into a bigger thing, when I go to tournaments, one of the things that I do is I'd like to watch the parents. And I've always said this, 99% of why kids quit is down to the parents. And it's because of the pressure they put on kids. And it's also because of the pressure they want to take off kids. So as an example, when we did the tournament here, I watched some parents that when their kid was struggling or when their kid was crying when they came off the mats because they had a tough loss or they'd won and just got beaten up for 3 minutes, the kid would come off and the parent would be like, it's okay, that's fine, you did really, really well, you don't have to do the next match. Okay, you've just given the kid an out. That kid now is going to go, I don't have to? Okay, I'm out. So they're not going to compete again. Whereas you have to realise as a parent, it's okay for your kids to struggle in a safe environment. They're allowed to struggle. They're allowed to for it to be a bit hard. Because life sucks, man. I say this to my kids all the time. Daddy, what is life sucks, handle it. Just get on with it, right? If it's too much, then I help you. With Alicia, I don't coach, I'm dad. Which means I take care of all the other things that she needs when she goes to a tournament that she doesn't have to worry about. So for example, is the gi packed? Are we going to get there on time? Does she need her headphones? Does she want to? Because sometimes what she'll do is she'll sit and read a book by the side of the mat. My job is to keep her relaxed, keep her calm, and just keep her in a place where when she goes on the mats, she's just like, I'm not fighting, I'm just playing. And as a result, what's happened is with her, she's got this attitude of, she goes on and she's just so relaxed. But because she's so relaxed, she's able to be a bit aggressive and quite, in some cases, quite nasty with it as well. And if she gets a gold, she's like, oh, I got gold. If she gets a bronze, she's like, oh, I got gold. And times when she's done her judo tournament, she's sometimes not medal. She's gone back and gone, oh, I didn't get a medal. All right, cool. On to the next one. She doesn't feel wins. She doesn't feel losses. I've tried really hard at an early age as well to go, look, you're a 10-year-old girl. Your jiu-jitsu journey, if you stick it out, is potentially another 50 years. So you don't have to gas out now. And your journey is about the learning. It's not about the winning or the losing. To the point where we developed a little, I don't know what you want to call it, like a little team talk or little, whatever you want to call it beforehand, team talk. Let's call it team talk. So I will ask her before a tournament, I will say, right, what are you in control of? And again, this is the mentor. And she will say, I'm in control of my actions, I'm in control of my body movements, I'm in control of my emotions, and I'm in control of how aggressive or not aggressive I need to be. What are you not in control of? I'm not in control of the other person's body movements. As much as you think you are, you can't control what they're going to do. I'm not in control of their emotions. I'm not in control of what their preparation was like or how aggressive they're going to be. And more importantly, I'm not in control of whether I win or lose. Now that might sound counterproductive, but as a competitor, where you've had fights where you've dominated and the referees raise the other person's hand. So you're not in control of that decision, really. And once you take that away, especially the winning and losing, the only thing she focuses on is going on the mat and doing the task. So what's the task? I'm under mount. The task is to escape. The task is to frame. And then we go from there. And then after that, the rest is just auto-generated from her, I think, because ultimately she's a bit like me. So she just loves a good tear up. Like she just loves I had a little mess around with her yesterday. She went after me. She genuinely tried to kill me. Good Lord. So that's what it is. And it's interesting watching parents.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I'll throw this question back to you. I think you can tell the kids that are going to stick it out. Based on how the parents are.
Okay. That was a different question until you said based on how the parents are.
Yeah. Threw that in there at the end.
It's difficult because when we're teaching the classes here now, we don't have the parents in the room for the most part. Good. So I don't see a lot of the parents, to be honest with you. So it's difficult to kind of judge it. I do know that there's some parents that want their kids doing lots of sport, and from text messages, conversations that we've had, that they value jiu-jitsu, and I think it's just, I don't even know if it even does come down to how much pressure the parent does or doesn't put on the child. I think as long as the parent is open to be bringing them here, very similar to what you said about just being dad and turning up to the competitions and making sure they're on time, they've been fed, they had to sleep the night before, etc., etc. All these things that could change their environment. As long as you're getting them to the dance, then it's kind of on them if they want to do it or not. Because I think you could have their best interests and bring them to jiu-jitsu and do everything right, and the kid's still going to turn around one day and say, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I've had that. I get a text message from a parent saying, look, he just don't want to do it anymore. I'm gutted. I really wanted him to do it. You know, we've tried a few different things. I just can't get him to turn up anymore. And I don't want it to be that I just drag them to class, which is fair enough. So it's very difficult, mate, to be honest with you. I think kids change so much over the years as well. And I think most parents are good parents that we have down here, and they want the kid to be happy, to enjoy the things that they're doing. So I don't know if I've even answered the question. I think I've just talked. Not really answered.
But not about yourself this time.
So probably.
You raising?
I don't feel like I could tell. I don't know if I could tell which one's going to last or not. Other than if the kid is really unhappy being here, I think you're just kind of being forced there, and at some point you're going to quit.
But you raise an interesting point amongst your answer, and I've seen this as well. There are some parents, and you do see it a lot of tournaments, that are trying to live through their child, so they're not grapplers, or they're a bit lazy with the health, and they're pushing their kids because you know they want their kid to do A, B, C, D, but you kind of go, well, you ain't doing it either. So I think that is also a huge factor in why potentially Alicia becomes successful, because she's got two parents that are active in their own different ways. Now, I'm not saying, I understand that some parents don't have that facility, and I get that, and I'm, you know, I apologise for being in them circumstances. But from the perspective of this, I also, if you can't model that, then I don't think it's fair to put the pressure on your kid and go, well, I'm not doing it, so you should do it. Because the kid will have an out. Well, what you doing?
100%, man. Me and my missus speak about this a lot, actually.
I
think it motivates my missus more to do more herself as well, since we've had kids. Because we do want to be good role models at the end of the day. And I think most people know that. But like you said, unfortunately, circumstances sometimes, I don't know, if maybe your dad and you're the breadwinner and you're having to work 70 hours a week or something, what can you do?
What can you do?
You are still a good role model, do you know what I mean, to your kids.
In a different way.
But maybe you just can't apply the same, maybe sporting principles that you would want your kids to follow. So, man, it's just a battle in it as a parent to do the best you can. And no one really knows the answers. We're just all kind of like trying things out, and what worked for one kid maybe doesn't work for your second kid.
What we found because Alicia did judo as well at the Leicester Judo Academy, so shout out to Craig Robbins, who's exceptional human and really, really good school. What we found, he did something very clever. So when he takes his kids to tournaments, he takes a lot of kids to tournaments. Like, he's done tournaments where there's 50 of his kids there, like a proper crew. And one of the big things that he does, he's also very promotes and advocates the kid representing their own success. So like, if you've been to a tournament, he will get the kids to come in and bring their medals in. He will get the kids to talk about it and things like that, because we are all monkey see, monkey do in some ways. And there will obviously be some kids who goes, maybe I get one of those big shiny things, and then it starts to generate as well. So I think that's also a good way of motivating
I think we need to do a
them.
bit more of that down here, to be honest with you, especially when we get a few more kids competing outside. But that's what we do our in-house competitions as well, because And when I try and invite some of the kids just to come and watch as well, even if they're not competing. So you get to see what some of the older kids are doing. Not even the older kids now, we have some younger kids competing as well. We're just seeing what's achievable through it. Do you know what I mean? Do you get nervous watching Alicia?
Damn, man. Yeah, massively.
I can imagine I would for my kids.
Yeah.
Well, I do for my students, to be fair.
Really?
So, yeah, especially with the kids when they're competing. So.
Really?
Yeah, like even when we just do our in-house comps down here, I do feel emotional for some of the kids for sure. Like when I see some of them that win and they didn't think that they could win.
That's a great story.
Or the ones that lose and they didn't quite show their potential. And I feel a bit gutted for them because I know it hits some of them hard and they might not compete. I've had kids that don't want to compete again, and I'm gutted for them because I know the potential they've got.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going back to you with Alicia. You get nervous a lot.
It terrifies me.
Yeah.
But not nervous for the winning and losing. I don't really care if she wins or loses. So I always said this with both of my kids, because my son boxes. Right, so he's never going to do grappling. He's not a grappler.
Okay.
He's a striker. Like he will knock your head teeth out. Right, so he's a boxer. So with Alicia, all I want for her is, and I've said this before, my goal for her is not to be a jiu-jitsu black belt, not to be ADCC world champion or any of that kind of stuff. My goal for her as a girl growing up to be a woman in a very dangerous world is if it's 3 o'clock in the morning outside the chippy and you put your hands on her, she's going to break whatever you touch her with. So she's going to come back and go, would you bring that? Why have you brought me someone's arm? You know, like a cat brings back a dead pigeon. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's going to happen.
Good analogy, mate.
Real talk. That's what's going to happen, right? So then I don't have to then get a phone call and go in, can you come down? And by the way, can you bring Uncle so-and-so as well? And then all that lot. I'm like, oh, God, really? Because I don't, you know what I mean? It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Ultimately, for me, it's always been about safety. And sadly, that's the world we live in. Because she's going to grow up to be a woman and women are marginalised and threatened, sadly. Yeah. You got, young families as well.
Two girls, man. So, and they're both gonna have to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to navigate that if they tell me they don't want to do it, and they're gonna have to somehow. I don't want to drag them to class, but they're gonna have to do it because similar to what you've just said about not wanting the phone call. To come down and help out, whatever. I don't want the phone call to say something's happened to my daughter, and I didn't do everything that I could to put her in a position where she could help herself.
Yes.
Like if she trains for 10 years and something bad happens to her, it can still happen.
Yeah, of course,
okay.
of course.
But at least, as sad as I would still be that this said thing might have happened, I'll still be able to sleep at night knowing that I did everything that I could leading up to that for that one moment to happen where she was at least prepared for it.
Yeah. And you've controlled your controllables there.
Exactly. Yeah. So that lives with me all the time.
Yes.
What I think about. So.
100%.
Yeah. As I don't want to drag her to jiu-jitsu, but there's going to have to be something that she does that gets her to be able to defend herself. Do
something else. Box. Muay Thai. Whatever you want to do. As long as you take someone's teeth out when they put their hands on you, we're 100%, good.
100%, man. I don't even think if I had boys, I think it'd be different. I think with boys, I'd be like, do a bit of this, do a bit of that, do it for fun. But boys are going to be boys anyway and whatnot, and you'll kind of be all right, I guess, maybe to a degree. I just think girls is different.
Very.
And being a girl dad is probably different. Although I've not got boys, so I can't really speak too much about that.
Yeah, it is very different. But I think, before we circle back as well, your two children have very different personalities as well, I would imagine. So even if they were the same gender or different gender, you're not going to parent the first like the second, like two different animals altogether. So I think that still exists.
They're definitely animals.
Yeah, real talk. Yeah, for real, man. Feral. Do what they do. They eat like animals. My two do. They're 70% of my shopping budget. It's ridiculous. The nerves thing is, I just want when she's at tournaments, all I want. I'm nervous because I just want her to walk away from whatever she's doing, class or tournaments, and go to bed that night and go, actually, do you know what? I did the best I could. Which is another rule that we have. I always say to her, look, what are you going there for? Are you going there to win or to lose? And she's going, I'm going there to do the best I can. I'm going there so I can go to bed tonight and know that I left everything on the mat, and that's it.
That's not just advice for your kids, that's advice for everyone. I try and tell it to the adults when they compete.
How does it go down?
Yeah, I think adults get more nervous than the kids do.
I think, yeah.
I think adults as they go through life, get a lot more hang-ups that the kids haven't had time to go through yet. And so I think with kids, for the most part, they're just more relaxed with things. Like, say, for example, you take an 8-year-old to a competition, that's just what they know. They're only 8, they don't know a lot that's happened in their life.
They just do.
But when you take a 30-year-old and they do their first competition, they've had 30 years of feelings and worry and things like that. So now you got to competition, throw that in the mix as well, and all the crap that throws at you. It's like, oh my God, I don't even know if I can handle this anymore. So yeah, as advice I try and give to all the adults as well, is that you can only do your best. You can't control a lot of the things that happen.
Nope.
Just try and hit 100%. You won't. But if you try to, you probably have a good performance and you probably win.
And you'll be all right, yeah. I did used to, before fights, certainly when I was boxing, I remember vomiting a couple of times. You know, being that nervous and going right into your car park and just being sick and then going, right, okay.
I know people that have cried, thrown up, all sorts of emotions come out before, not just a fight probably, but just something that you care about. I'm sure if you were a public speaker, you could probably go through those same emotions because it's something that you care about and, you know, something that matters and you're building up to that one moment. So whether it's fighting's different, of course, but...
And what you've outlined is the pressure that I want to take off. I try and take off Alicia when she's competing, because again, so you know, going back to watching parents and how they are with the kids before tournaments and stuff. I remember the last tournament we went to, I remember watching one set of parents with their kids, and their kid was doing, like, you know how you do your warm ups here, doing laps and circuits and everything else. And I'm watching this kid going, I don't really know how much this is going to help you, really. Because if you haven't been taught very well, or you haven't turned up for class for the last 6 months, you can do all the warm-ups you want. It's not going to help. So it doesn't really matter. All you're doing is you're winding that kid up to put pressure on itself. That when it goes on the mat, they're not going to be able to achieve anything anyway. So yeah, try and take the pressure off, which is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Well, I know you've already touched on this, but what is it you want from Alicia from competing in the long run? I know you've already said about the self-defence, and that obviously is massively important. Is there anything like that you wanted to achieve in jiu-jitsu, or you're really just happy to gain the self-defence aspect?
I think I go by what she said. She says, and it's easy to say this as a 10-year-old, but you know, she said, I want to be world champion. Now, you know, every 10-year-old boy, for example, says they're going to play for a Premier League football team.
Yeah, so words out my mouth then.
Yeah. And I'm not going to devalue what she wants, that she wants to do that, because no doubt she will try to do that, right? And she will put the hours in to do that. It may happen, it may not. You know, you might end up with someone who's ADCC in your camp. For me, tournaments is more about, first of all, keeping her engaged on the mat. And we have really, really good conversations on the drives back. So we will kind of go, okay, what did you do really well today? And she will like, oh yeah, I was in mount and my cross choke went really well today because I was able to find the grips and I was able to hand fight really well. What did you not do so well today? Okay, well, you know, in the second match I got stuck in close guard and I couldn't get out properly because my balance was off. So she's very analytical in that sense. She's already starting that journey of breaking it down, which leads to the answer to the question, which is ultimately I want her competition to make her good at jiu-jitsu. You know, I genuinely believe, truthfully, I mean, she's done nearly 40 tournaments. She's 10 years old already. That's a lot of tournaments. And I genuinely believe that if she stays on the mats, she has a chance of being a black belt at some point, and a very, very good black belt. But not because she's competed, but because she studied jiu-jitsu. Like those little intricacies that we know. You know, that's what I want more than anything else.
Yeah. Okay, another question for you. So, I've got a 4-year-old. In fact, let's not just talk about my 4-year-old. Let's say you've got a 5-6-year-old that's coming to classes, or the parents trying to get them to come to classes here and they're refusing. This is going to be the answer that you give, if it's a good answer, is going to be the best part of this podcast, that people are going to go, yes, that is exactly what I needed to hear from this.
I need to vomit.
So for the parents that are out there,
let me just be sick.
Really want their kids to do jiu-jitsu and they can't get them to want to do it, or again, they don't want to force them. What we got? How are we getting them to class?
Okay, so
can we get them to class?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so it's a sliding scale in. The first is you can just basically throw them into class, like physically just You're there. I'm going. Sit there and do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't recommend it, but I have seen some parents go, right, off you go. A step down from that becomes incentivization. So, for example, Brody, my son, he goes to boxing, and in times past, not now, you know, I get the coaches come back going, he's a bit messing around. Now, we have a rule in our house where I don't shout, I don't raise my voice, I actually don't tell people off, I just do everything as consequence. And so I said to Brody, I was like, look man, we're paying for this, you're wasting my money. So I'll give you two choices now. Every class who comes back and your coach says you're not doing what you should be doing, you're going to give me money out of your birthday money that you got, right? So you ain't going to be able to buy that Lego set, you ain't going to be able to buy this, right? That's my money you're wasting. And he was like, okay, fine. And so the next thing we did is we put this tick chart together. And so if he gets 10 weeks of the coach going, he's done really well, my son, he goes, oh, Daddy, can you take me to Pizza Hut? I go, yeah, all right. Done. Or he goes to Boost Trampoline Park or something like that. So you give me 10 weeks and I'll take you to Pizza Hut. In fact, I'll do them both at the same time. And as a result, straight in. He's solid. So incentivization works. And again, it goes back to the value system that I always align to. What's important in that person's life, even as a kid. That kid might say, Daddy or Mummy, I just want, I want to download Minecraft, which is a thing now, I guess. Or I just want the new dolls or whatever it is that they want. Okay, you give me this and I will give you that.
Yeah.
Incentivization works really well with young kids.
Yeah. There we go.
And measure it as well. So like the chart is on the wall, for example. So they can't go, yeah, but Daddy, I've done 6 weeks. And you go, where's the proof?
Yeah.
I've got 6 ticks. It's on the fridge. It's on my wall. I can see it visibly now. So they can't lie to you either.
Yeah, we are starting to try and do this with our 4-year-old. Apparently at nursery they have something called positive pennies that they gain at nursery. Pennies. So we've kind of brought that back to home where we, if she has a chart where she cleans her teeth, does a daily task, she gets a positive penny, she saves up so many pennies, and we do need to get a little bit more strict with it, I think, because the chart comes in and out week by week. Sometimes the positive pennies don't always add up to the same value of item. Like we might give her one thing at the end of getting 20 positive pennies, and then maybe she gets 10 one time and we give her something that's probably worth more. Or, do you know what I mean? So it's something I need to tighten up a little bit and definitely get better at. So maybe I'm on the right tracks, but just need to
you are. I think you're
fine tune it.
I think you're an exceptional dad. And a question to you is why do they? No. Now there's a tip. Never start a question with a why. That was wrong. that was wrong. As mentoring, never start a why question. Why questions are inflammatory. So what's the benefit to you for them starting at age 4? And I'll put some context behind it. If you're or anybody's child doesn't want to start jiu-jitsu at 4 and they start at 12 and by the time they're 20 they end up an adult purple belt, we're good here, right?
Yeah.
Why do they need to start at that age?
Yeah. That is very true.
They might not just be ready for it.
Yeah.
They could just be... it might come later.
Yeah.
And I think that's something as parents we have to accept. So what's the benefit to you for them starting that early?
Yeah. And I think that's okay as well, because sometimes I look back at my own career and I didn't really start martial arts till 22 when I really took it seriously. And I feel a lot from 22 to where I am now. And I always say I wish I'd have started earlier.
Yeah,
where could I have been?
That, yeah.
But would I have still been? I might have quit by 22. I might have got my 20 years in or 15 years in, and then that's enough. So I may not have got to where I got to. So yeah, I think it is okay. That would probably be my little bit of advice for parents as well. That as touching on what you've just said, what's the difference between them starting at 4 or starting at 8, 9, or even 15? As long as they get started and they can get 5 to 10 years under their belt as a young adult, they're still where you wanted them to be. So,
but hold them to account. I think this is one thing as parents we don't always do. We don't hold our children. I'm not saying we have to hold them to ridiculously high standards, but if the kid said they're going to do something, they should do it. Certainly in our house, if the kid's gone, if either Lissy or Brody's gone, I'm going to do this. Okay, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Make sure it's done. If it ain't done, then I ain't going to do what you asked me to do either.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant, mate. All really good advice.
Watch out, you get loads of complaints now.
No, man, I think it's brilliant. I think people are going to enjoy listening to the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to get off your chest before we call it a day?
I mean, Wu-Tang is for the children.
Of course.
I'll just go there and say that. I think your hip-hop taste is impeccable. I just want to say that. Listening to some of the songs here today makes me happy, bro.
I try my best, but I can't always claim that it's stuff that I'm always into. I don't like to make playlists with, say, 30, 40 songs on and then just hit shuffle, because you still get this, after 6 months or whatever, unless you keep making new ones, you get the same songs. So I just pick a song that I like on my YouTube Premium, and then it goes off and does its own thing. Yeah. If it goes too far down one path, I think, where's this going to? Then I'll just play a different song and reset it, and off it goes again. It picks the relatable stuff. So, but I do get complaints as well, So
from who?
I won't go into it, but some people do complain about the hip hop as well. So I mix it up a little bit, try and play a little bit of dance from time to time, which I'm all into that stuff as well, to be fair, and a bit of rock as well. I like a bit of rock.
You played reggae one time. That's the one genre.
Don't like it?
No.
I love a bit of reggae.
It's far too relaxed for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a specific type of music I like to play for jiu-jitsu. I like the reggae vibe though. I remember when me and Ranj were travelling, we went to Brandon Quick's place.
Yeah, big up to Ranj.
He was playing loads of Bob Marley. Then these were morning sessions though. So you turn to a morning session, Bob Marley's playing, everyone's rolling. And it was just a wicked vibe.
Yeah,
ever since then, I've always liked to play a little bit of reggae. But yeah, if it's a competition class, we ain't playing that. We're not playing Bob Marley. No. You know what I mean? If it's competition class, playing something where there's a bit more shouting and swearing.
Death metal.
Not death metal. I'm not into that.
No, that's too far.
I'm not keen on that.
That's way too far.
Yeah. All right, wicked, mate. We'll call it there.
Blessing.
Thank you very much again for doing the podcast.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. I can't wait to get that out there.